Look, if we tried to include what you then typed into the chat GPT as ideas for that fun, you would get instantly shadow banned. Welcome to Crash, the tech podcast about everything else. Today, that means AI training for all, sponsored by Amazon, the adult industry's British demise, and now not even the VPN is safe from censorship. I'm Alex Hudson.
And I'm Chris Stokel-Walker, sad about our VPNs.
And I mainly want to know what Bink is doing with iWoke. Is that how you pronounce it? iWoke?
I don't
with
know.
A comma.
I don't know. I saw this on Monday, so I got a press release that said Bink is teaming up with Iwoko, and I was like, comma. The comma is important as well in the subject line. And I had just come off the back of doing my Pitch Perfect training. If you are listening and you are in PR or anything like that, go to my website. It improves your pitches. It's worth the money. And yeah, it was just awful. It was a terrible pitch. And they're like mid 2000s green and translucent iMac era. Let's load up our songs on our MP3 player and our Zune or whatever it was that we had back then, and get rid of all the vowels.
No, there's vowels in Bink and iWoke. You can't make that a joke at their expense. They are fully voweled.
What are the letters that are simultaneously consonants in some cultures and vowels in others? Y is one of them, right? But there is also Q one, because Q looks a lot like Y, and I can't tell whether it's just because they look alike that I think that, or whether or not it's because that's actually true. By the way, for those who aren't watching our podcast, which you can do on Spotify, Alex is doing Let Me Chat GPT that as I'm talking.
I'm not Chat GPT. I'm going old school. I'm Googling it. So the letter W is usually a consonant, but occasionally a vowel. The letter Y is a letter that occasionally is a vowel, according to K12libratest.org, which is the top Google result. And I'm going to believe it because I believe that Google only serves me with the best possible things. Apparently, yeah, it's only Y and W, apparently.
You just get a sense about certain things. To me, W's are always consonants. I don't know what that is. In my head, it can never be a vowel.
Well, two U's, that's two vowels. Look, I spent a long time doing bad puns for this episode, and if you're going to laugh at that pun, just you wait until later.
Go on, keep
going. It's
not
funny. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but it's very smart. It took me like a while to think about. Oh yeah, okay. It's like the logic is the thing is the logic is correct, so therefore it's double vowels. Or is it one of those ones like a minus sign where it negates itself?
Two U's do not equal a W. Minus U.
No, two minuses equal a plus. So therefore, do two vowels not equal a consonant? This is the sort of stuff that gets us 1-star reviews, by the way.
No, it's not. It's just talking about porn, which we're going to do later, which gets us the 1-star reviews. So, actually, yeah, I meant to talk about that, and I haven't yet. If you do listen, watch, or whatever you do with this podcast, do review us, because at the minute we are being attacked by certain trolls who aren't okay with our woke liberal nonsense about the adult industry. So we would love to have some recompense and some other diverse voices of people who actually enjoy it and like it and listen to it. Before we start, I'm going to give a good news story. Well, good news for the technology industry, bad news for me. So I used an app called Full Track AI for my cricket. We're in pre-season for cricket. That's a grandiose title. It's messing around at Lords. And the Full Track AI essentially does what Hawkeye did 10 years ago, but now on a phone app, and it's $8.99 a month. It's scary good. And all that it does is prove that I am so bad at cricket, mainly bad at bowling. And so the sort of a really bad county player, middle-paced bowler, would bowl around 75 miles an hour, and that would be slow. I just had one delivery when I was trying my hardest that went over somebody's head. The one hit 70 miles an hour, and that was it. It was like average 60 miles an hour. This is embarrassing. And I hate the fact that you now have technology videos where it clips up every single delivery you bowl, and you can feed it back, and it knows where you pitched, it knows how much swing it's got. It's frightening.
I used to play golf when I was a teenager, and I used to really hate the idea of like attaching a gizmo to your golf club that would try and track your swing, but it didn't do. Like, this was pre-digital era, so it was like It was like a ball bearing within some sort of casing on the end of your golf club. And if the ball bearing ended up in a certain direction, then your golf swing wasn't straight. Whereas now, I went to a driving range because a couple of friends wanted me to go and play around in golf with them, and I was amazed by just the tech that's involved. I mean, do you worry that does that just make you feel inferior? Does it take the fun out of the game for you to know that you're actually a really rubbish bowler, or did you already know that secretly? But
I
you
already
hadn't
knew I was a
bothered?
rubbish bowler. That's not a surprise. I'm a batter who only when you're really desperate would. Batting was actually really good in the app. With the golfing app, have you been to one of those magical? They've got the sort of pros inside the video halls of golf. Have you been to one of those before?
I have not.
You get the full 360 camera treatment, and they can diagnose the issue with your swing automatically.
You like a
That's
heptathlete or
just
something like that? You do cricket, you do golf. What else do you do, Alex?
all the middle class sports. I do
I,
yoga, I
I
do Pilates, I do cycling, I do cricket.
I got put off cricket when I was 11 years old and playing for my primary school team, which sounds impressive, but it isn't, because it was just literally all the people in the primary school in that year that could possibly be any slightly sporty. And my head has always been very big. That'll be a surprise to you, Alex. I'm very big-headed and have always been. And so I had to, at the age of 11, have an adult large cricket helmet.
And now we're just waffling on about stuff. So, onto our main story. The government has announced that every adult in the UK is eligible to take free new courses to gain practical AI skills for work, with the aim of training 10 million workers with AI skills by 2030. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall has vowed to make Britain the leading AI adopter in the G7 and build a workforce that excels in developing, adopting, and benefiting from AI. Just a point on the G7. Must just be a coincidence that the G7 is mentioned when India, nor China, nor South Korea are members of said G7. Just a coincidence. Anyway, it comes alongside 100 AI scholarships, 27 million to kickstart the Tech Local scheme as part of an overall £187 million programme, which promises to help employers create or fill 1,000 tech jobs, which works out as 270 grand per job created, but we're not going to get into that right now. We have asked DSIT, to the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, about that cost per job, but haven't had anything back yet. But at least something is happening. Criticism has come from the government's choice of partners. So the founding partners are Accenture, Amazon, Barclays, BT, Google, IBM, Microsoft Sage, SAS, not the SAS, but Statistical Analysis System, and Salesforce. Joining a few new ones I won't read out because that list was already too long. But critics say the training is being run by big tech and is actually training people to become better workers and consumers, not better citizens. So is economic growth superseding democratic value? Our guest thinks so. Dr. Eleanor Carmi is a senior lecturer in data politics and social justice at City St George's, associate dean for postgraduate research, a trustee at the Media and Information Literary Alliance, and an expert member of the ICO Technology Advisory Panel. That is a long LinkedIn resume, so it's incredibly impressive, and her expertise is trusted by House of Lords, and she is an important voice in her field. So how are you doing?
I'm good. Again, thank you so much for inviting me and for this wonderful introduction. Thank you. I should carry you to every conference.
Alex is a good hype man. It's true.
Absolutely. Hyping me up.
Absolutely. So let's start with the sort of simple stuff. What's wrong with the government trying to upskill 10 million people?
So, first of all, there's nothing wrong, and I think it's a really good initiative. I think that the collaboration with the big tech companies is the problem. And so when they announced it in July, I co-wrote a letter to the government together with, which was led by Connected by Data, by Tim Davies, and a lot of other civil society and academics. And we had 70 signatures. And we basically said, look, a lot of people actually don't feel part of the discussion about AI. A lot of people don't trust institutions, but also we really need critical skills. So it's quite difficult when you collaborate with big tech companies. And I think it's really important to mention there are a lot of organizations in the UK who are providing a lot of AI upskilling and literacy programs. So I don't really understand why we need to collaborate with big tech companies. And I think, like you mentioned, I think it raises a lot of kind of bigger questions about, what does it mean when democratic governments collaborate with profit-driven companies, that obviously they don't share the same values as democracies. And I think it's really important to emphasize that we need skills. I do a lot of work about literacies. We need people to have better literacies in their work, but I think that it's pretty clear by every newspaper that you open literally every day to see that these companies don't always have people's interest and human rights in heart. And so I just think that this kind of initiative could have been done with local organizations that are already on the ground, that are already connected with the communities, that know how to adjust these programs for them and have their best interests in mind.
So why is that then? Why, as you say, those organizations do exist, both in terms of grassroots educational charities, organizations, NGOs, whatever it may be. And the government talks all the time about how we're number 3 in the global AI race. And we have a surfeit of talent. We have so much of it. Why then does the government keep going back to these big tech names, the ones that Alex decided he wasn't even going to list because we've heard them time and time again?
Yeah, I'm going to quote a really good friend of mine, Rachel Caldicott, who says that FOMO is not a strategy. But it does feel like FOMO is a strategy for the government, because it kind of feels like they're jumping on the AI Kool-Aid, even though so many people are starting to say, actually, it looks like the bubble is going to burst. These companies are not making money, and these companies are trying to kind of get more and more people to use their products. We've seen actually a couple of days ago that NBC has published unsealed documents from Google and how they are trying to kind of reach young kids through different kind of collaborations that they have in schools to catch users as young as they can, so that they use their products early on. And so we're seeing, and again, a lot of these AI companies are already starting to do these maneuvers in higher education. We have a collaboration of OpenAI and Oxford University. Now in Manchester University also announced that. So we're seeing a lot of these AI companies kind of trying to get more people on board so that they can make money, because now we saw, after they don't make money, they're going to integrate advertising, which we all knew. And I was saying this for a long time. We knew that that's what they're going to do, right? So they need more subscribers, and that's their way to do that. And I think maybe in the government, there's not a lot of critical people to advise people in the government that actually, yes, AI is maybe here to stay, but we need kind of more critical voices, and we need to use it kind of with caution. So yeah, basically FOMO seems to be the strategy.
Yeah, but how do we change that? Because I guess I understand fully why AI companies would want to get in on the ground floor and convince this. And I understand that the government is kind of reaching for whatever expertise it can get. But why do we not have that expertise in government? Or why are people not willing to, like, are they not willing to go into government to advise on this sort of thing and say, actually, that's dangerous? Or is it that they're not being heard? What's going on there?
I think a lot of them are not being heard. And I think, a lot of academics and journalists, I think including yourselves, have been kind of shouting at the cloud and saying, hey, this is a bit maybe overblown. Maybe we should be more critical about this. But I think many times we're not being heard. As academics, I can definitely tell you that every kind of hype that there is, we've been warning for years. And then you get a whistleblower coming and they're like, oh, this is what's happening. Whilst us academics have been saying it for like a decade before. So I think that there is maybe kind of a disconnect. And I think that there's a disconnect between other initiatives that the government is doing, for example, the digital inclusion and the media literacy inquiries that were just happening. And I know that the government is taking a lot of kind of experts, both academics and civil society, and it's all connected, right? Because people don't have basic media and data literacies, and it's, you need to kind of see it as a broader issue and kind of acknowledge that. Not to mention that a lot of unions have also kind of been raising these issues. That TUC have published in August kind of their approach to AI innovation strategy, and how they want to collaborate with the government more, and how workers want to be more included in these decisions. It does say in that announcement that they consulted with unions, but I'm not quite sure to what extent. Um, so I think that there is a need to kind of listen to more experts and to try to kind of be less influenced by a lot of this kind of hyping of the tech bros. And I know that it's difficult, but I think that it is possible.
And is there a chance that actually, if these 10 million people are trained and are given sort of full AI literacy, then actually your desire for people to come back and question these things, is there a chance that actually by training them and using big tech and trying to convince them about big tech, actually you give them more agency and more understanding of what they should be against or for, and that could really improve the way that the UK goes about policy in future? Or is that just my hopelessly naive, incredibly optimistic view of it?
Well, again, I think it's not black and white. It could be, but I think one of the things so just to kind of explain a bit my background, I started my kind of research examining kind of all of the ad tech industry, web cookies, interface dark patterns. I got really angry. And then when I got angry, I was like, well, how does that then affect how people engage with these technologies? And I think that, it's really important to mention that throughout the time span of social media, they've done everything in their power for us not to know about a lot of very problematic practices, especially web cookies, fingerprinting, the consent mechanism, all of that. So I think if we at one point would say, oh, actually, they do care about us, then I think that our approach might be a bit different. But I think in all of the past few years, with, a lot of kind of meddling in democracy, I don't think that these platforms have proven themselves to be trustworthy enough to give these kind of trainings for people to be able to be critical enough. Since Trump has been elected, a lot of these companies scaled back on a lot of their privacy and a lot of their ethics committees. So I think it tells us everything that we need to know, that actually they don't have people's kind of well-being in mind. Every week I'm seeing another article about a lot of actually CEOs of companies saying that they can't really see that AI is bringing them more revenue or saving costs or all of these things. So we really need to kind of be more careful and give the opportunity to organizations that are already on the ground and know what they're doing, and realize that this is part of a bigger issue of upscaling not only work as everybody in society, but again, having this kind of more critical edge to it and kind of citizenship in mind.
And in research for this interview, I was sort of trying to speed read as much as I can of your work. You've written a lot, but so the thing I focus on, your 2023 co-authored paper, you're sort of asking the question about what mobilizes people against big tech.
Yeah.
And the idea of powerlessness and digital resignation. And you talk about the way that tech companies have scaled back their privacy and have, since there has been that freedom, and there hasn't really been that uprising, or it hasn't. And in fact, most of the tech companies have jumped in profits, and now they account for, I think it's 40% of the S&P between the big seven, give or take, depending on which day it is. And yet that paper, I think attempts to be sort of optimistic and mobilizing people. Now that sort of 3 year, well, the year of Trump, but 3 years have passed since that paper, are you still as optimistic that people can work through that sense of powerlessness? Or to your last point, are people now beyond complaining or beyond petitioning for change?
First of all, we're never beyond complaining. That's always the option. As you know, as an academic, it's my job. It's my job to do that. But I think I wanted to also mention and give a shout out to, I'm part of a new organization that we're setting up called the Society for Hopeful Technologists. And it is kind of led by Rachel Caldicott, who I mentioned before, who has been in this space for a long time. And I think that organization came up from a need from a lot of people who are working in tech organizations, who are more critical and who are hopeful. And at the end of the day, whenever you're critical, you have to say, but don't worry, I still love technology. And I think that is something that is really important. Like, I met my partner through technology. Technology has enabled me so many things. We just wanted to work for the many and not for a few billionaires. And I think that there is a lot of hope. There's a lot of organizations who are doing a lot of amazing things. But I think the main issue is that if people don't fully understand what does AI entail, then that creates a lot of issues. So I'm teaching undergrads and postgrads about AI, and so many of them don't even know, for example, all of the environmental consequences, all of the workers, the data workers that work in AI. And I think that is something that I'm guessing, I haven't done all of the 14 amazing courses that the government is offering. I have a feeling that that's not something that's being discussed. So the more people know about all of these kind of things, the more they can join the movement in different capacities and ways to do that. So in a short way, yes, I'm very hopeful. And I think that the fight is only beginning. And I think that people want technology to work for them and not against them. And I think that we're not against technology. We love technology. We just, don't want it to be for the few billionaires.
And that's a completely sensible, completely rational point of view. Why doesn't it get across? You replied to this initial announcement in July. 70 of the finest minds in this space were looking at that. And I know how much you and many other people hammer down the door trying to get in. What's going wrong on either side between communicating that message and getting the government to actually listen to it?
I mean, that's the $100 million question, I guess. So first of all, just to update you, we're technically these days, today, we're revising that letter and we're going to resend it. We're going to have additional signatures. And, I think it's just about knocking on the doors more and more, right? Like you see that same fight, I'm in several kind of networks. So I'm part of the Online Safety Act network. And, there's a lot of civil society that are fighting that fight, right? So I think people are trying to knock on the doors of the government. Some more successful than others. And I think it's an ongoing kind of discussion. And, the more hopefully we shout about it, then we get hopefully more attention. But obviously, and again, this is, I think, an article that was published last week, that the government has met a lot more with tech companies as opposed to civil society, right? So they obviously have a lot more access to the government. And that is a huge problem because at the end of the day, I want to remind the government they're working for me. They're not working for OpenAI, right? So I think that's something that the government sometimes maybe needs a bit of reminders, like you're working for us, you're not working for them. So we need better access to you so that you can hear us more, and to create kind of these more dialogues, because we want the well-being of everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, I find it incredibly difficult. It's such an imbalance, right? I mean, if you look at the amount of money that big tech can spend on lobbyists, you look at kind of civil society, academia, that partnership, and I guess it's easy for them to go for the ones that are so close and the ones that are constantly at their door rather than anything else. I just wonder, what the consequences of that will end up being and how you kind of break out of that. I guess we need more PhDs and people in government. Is there anybody in government who you have hope for? You were talking about hopeful futures for technology. I mean, is there anybody who is speaking your language in government?
If you're not watching the stream, the face said her answer already. It felt like
I'm very. It's one of my downsides. I can't really hide what I'm feeling. I think I can say that I think that it's maybe the exit of Peter Kyle was a positive one, because I think he was definitely more friendly with the tech companies. I'm not sure totally about Liz Kendall. I think that we would love to have more channels of communication with the government in different ways and capacities. I can't say that I have identified somebody specific that brings me hope, but I am still searching, and I hope to be able to find. But I think we just need to keep on shouting about the issues that matters to us. And at the end of the day, a lot of people feel like this. So just to give you an example, the Ada Lovelace Institute has done a great survey in December of 2025, and they say that a lot of the public feel kind of disenfranchised and excluded from AI decision making, but also more than 80% feel that the government is kind of prioritizing the partnership with large technology companies over the public interest. So the public also thinks like that, and I think that you need to listen to the public and what they are thinking.
So on that public point, I think, so to answer both Chris's question and the last one to you, I think the reason that politicians aren't listening is what moves votes. And if you disengage the tech companies, then there is a risk that the economy shrinks, or whether that be literally symbolically or in realpolitik of the other parties being able to argue that you're anti-business. So I think that's part of that. And then for the sort of optimistic question is, what is that vote winning message, or will show that the economy can grow both ethically and practically when it comes to Britain's absolute persistence with this sort of productivity crisis. It won't grow despite AI being this great promised land of productivity growth. Is there that positive message that someone can put in a manifesto and provide that point of difference, particularly as we're sort of gearing up for whatever happens this year with a leadership challenge or whatever else happens in politics? Is there that thing that stands out?
I think that maybe the UK can learn from France, that a couple of days ago has said that they're not going to use Zoom and Teams, and they're going to use their own kind of video conferencing software, and to basically invest in local companies that reflect the local kind of visions and values of the UK instead of just kind of taking whatever the US is bringing. I think Europe is, you know, quite concerned about the influence of Trump. Trump himself has actually, threatened companies that don't kind of accept the big tech companies with different tariffs. And I think that we need to be very mindful of that. So I think maybe the strategy is to kind of actually, emphasize, we have a lot of great minds here and we can create different kind of platforms that are more suitable for us and kind of invest more in that rather than kind of trying to adopt stuff that obviously doesn't work and other countries in the world are already kind of saying this doesn't work and we should kind of start thinking of, I know that it's called kind of sovereignty, where a lot of Europe is kind of going towards. And I think it's actually a missed opportunity because a couple of decades ago, and a lot of the big tech companies started, there were a lot of initiatives, right? Local initiatives in Europe that were later either bought or crushed by the US monopolies. And I think it's time to reconsider, what does it mean that so much power is concentrated in a few US companies or Chinese that don't reflect the values of Europe. I still consider the UK as part of Europe. So, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. So, I think it's important to kind of be more creative and kind of think, okay, well, this is clearly not a relationship that's working. What can we do and how can we help kind of encourage more companies here to create new things that work for us better?
Maybe I'm too much of a cynic. I took the France move as being quite isolationist, like not thinking about European tech firms, but thinking about specifically the French element of it. So I don't know if it's isolationism, fighting tariff, it's fighting fire with fire rather than fighting America's fire with sort of more democratic process. Am I wrong in that, or am I just too jaded by the realities of Macron policy?
I think it's just worth trying stuff, right? Like we tried adopting the US company's path, right? And I'm not saying that everything is like the best way possible, but let's just try, let's just try other things. Because at the moment, everybody's just trying what the US has to sell us. And I'm like, let's just try something else, Can't hurt. We've already been hurt quite a lot. So I think that it's definitely worth trying.
That's a hopeful end, I think.
I think it's now as bad as it possibly could be. If that's your hopeful end,
it can't get worse from here.
Exactly. You see, sometimes things need to get so bad that then you're like, the bar is so low, so we can only go up from here. So, the tech companies are always trying to sell something, right? A few years ago, it was, everybody's going to use the metaverse. All of the business meetings are going to be on the metaverse, right? And guess what? Facebook, a couple of weeks ago, has dismantled the metaverse group. So I'm like, they're trying. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. And I think that we need to also have that approach. Let's just try something else,
I'm going to vibe code my app now. This is what I'm going to do.
Sounds good.
Right, Eleanor, where can our audience find you if they want to get in touch, or are there any campaigns that you particularly want to highlight that you want people's involvement in?
So first of all, if people are hopeful, they can join the Society for Hopeful Technologists. And this is kind of open to people who work in tech in the very broad sense. But also if you're an academic, if you care about that, you can find me ranting a lot on LinkedIn and on Blue Sky, definitely not on X. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find my email. It's online if you want to kind of bounce ideas and chat. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll be back in 1 minute. Welcome back. Pornhub will restrict access to its site from the UK from the 2nd of February. Only those who previously made accounts will be allowed access, blaming tougher age checks which have been introduced without really being implemented across the board. But UK traffic to the site had already fallen by 77% since the implementation of the Online Safety Act, or at least UK IP addresses traffic, as VPNs allow you to be anywhere you want to be. We'll come on to that later. But this has led, the main news is it's led to some terrible puns. The news movement's here today, goon tomorrow. No. There's some went pretty standard with access denied as the thing. I really wanted to open the show with the fantastic pun, the great British pornography switch off. But Chris was absolutely sure it was a terrible pun. And so I've had to include it in a non-including, postmodern, literary way to make it sound like it's really sharp and clever. But it's a great pun, Chris.
You made it even worse by adding the ography bit to porn. It had already way too many syllables. You're a musician. You know how to fit lyrics into rhythms. The great British pornography off has 3 too many syllables in it now, it feels like.
If we tried to include what you then typed into the chat GPT as ideas for that pun, we would get instantly shadow banned.
Yeah, I was a bit worried when I did that, actually. When I typed it in, I was like, they're going to be like, we have blocked your account due to suspicious activity.
But
yeah,
the lightness, well, no, the darkness of Chris's ChatGPT history. Anyway, the lightness hides a heavier story. British adult creators are left to struggle in the grey areas of the law and the grey areas of the audience, and we're planning to devote a large chunk of the show in the coming weeks to understand the nuance and the detail of what that means in practice and where tech goes next. And more bluntly, why governments are so keen to fuck the adult industry. So we're not going to spend too long now, but given that this law is going to be in place and this ban is going to be in place, this withdrawal is going to be in place by the time the next Crashed episode comes out, we're really keen to find out why this is happening, what the next steps are. And Chris, is this really enforceable?
No, I mean, of course not. Like, the Online Safety Act was never enforceable. And you see that both pragmatically in the sense that at the same time as Pornhub's visitor numbers from the UK dropped 77%, VPN interest increased by like 1,000%. It's because people are not stopping visiting porn websites. It's because they're finding other ways to visit porn websites that do not register as coming from a UK IP address. So that is one way in which this is just completely unenforceable. The other way that it's completely unenforceable, and demonstrably so, was buried down I think pretty much the last paragraph of The Guardian's write-up of this, which is that the Online Safety Act, which was put into force and became a real thing when? July last year, I think it was. So it's been in force for more than 6 months now. Only 2/3 of the top 100 porn websites in the UK have actually implemented the checks that they need to. So what is the point of this? If you're not even going to kind of crack down on the people who are not doing this, no wonder that ILO's CEO is calling this a failed regime.
So for balance, it is 68 of the top 100 sites, so just over 2/3, and the regulator was really really desperate to point out.
And it really taken... matter.
1.6 or whatever it is. And the regulator says it has taken strong and swift action, their words, against non-compliance, and they have launched investigations against more than 80 porn sites. But I think, to ILO's point, they've said that actually it is all of the industrial complex around those top 100 sites that means that they're just not forced to comply, and it means that it's driving people underground rather than their, what they say is safe, legal and regulated service.
The Online Safety Act, I think, was just a bodge job. I think that it's given Ofcom an impossible task to try and tame lions when you walk into the ring with just like probably like a rubber mallet and a bit of silly string or something like that. Like it's just impossible for them to be able to do this. So we're caught in this situation now where the regulation that was designed to keep us safe or our kids safe isn't working as it's intended. So what are you left with? Like, is this actually something that's going to do more harm than good?
So we're going to do a full discussion and try and understand what it means in practice. And we're at risk of becoming the porn podcast. So we're not going to spend too long now. But related to this story is this idea around VPN verification and needing age checks around VPNs. That had entirely passed me by. And so Chris was messaging me about this earlier, but it's so very present given the sort of Pornhub story. Can you explain the story, Chris, and what is going on with VPNs?
Yeah, passed me by as well until I saw it on James Ball's Blue Sky feed. So all credit to him for identifying this as a big old issue. So there is a bit of legislation going through Parliament at the minute, which is being debated in the Lords. It is the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill. It's related in some way to what we're talking about and the kind of issues here, but actually not fully. And effectively, as often happens in Parliament, people who have passion campaigns have managed to append amendments onto this bill, including one which is a requirement for VPNs that are operating or marketing into the UK to implement age assurance for UK users. And that thing passed by 207 votes to 159 last week, but people are only just realising it now because it's one of those obscure bits of parliamentary procedure that you don't really pay attention to. I don't know, what do you make of the fact that you have to hand over ID to access VPN, Alex?
Just because it's been a Lord's amendment,
Yeah.
does that mean then that it moves back into the Commons? Because I think, I mean, if it's an amendment that's been passed on Lords, it comes back to the Commons, and then they can blame the Lords if it goes wrong, and generally it goes through as a standard. But given if we're talking about it, someone in the Commons might pick it up. How certain are we that that becomes the law?
Yeah, not certain, to be completely honest. It can be knocked back. That is, as I'm putting on my best Chris Mason here, parliamentary ping pong that goes on. Better Chris Mason than Robin Peston, I think, to be honest. But anyway, that's by the by. He answers. I had to watch ITV. I said I had to watch. I like watching ITV News, but I watched ITV News for the first time in a long time yesterday, and Robert Peston just talks and talks and talks. He says, knowing that he himself has started talking and talking and talking. But anyway, that's besides the point. Yeah, parliamentary ping pong, I think, means that actually this isn't guaranteed. But given what we were just talking about with Eleanor Carmi and the fact that actually a lot of our understanding of tech and the trust that we have for politicians to understand tech is relatively low, I can absolutely foresee a world, not least because there is this drive at the minute to try and follow Australia in terms of please protect our kids, that you have people making the argument, well, we tried to ban access to porn for kids through the Online Safety Act. The biggest porn website provider has just said the Online Safety Act doesn't work because people are using VPNs. We saw this massive increase in VPN usage when the Online Safety Act was passed. Here's this problem and a solution to it proposed by the Lords. Yeah, this seems to work. Why won't we think of the kids, even though it has massive consequences for all of us?
Then I imagine people using VPNs to get access to VPNs, and I think that'll be the funny one. Using the sort of like absolute cowboy version of VPNs just so you can sign up to a VPN from Bulgaria or somewhere. I can see that happening, and again, that massively benefits those with good technology and massively works against those without clear technology. And I think what you are going to be left with, like, again, it's going to be 68 of the top 100 VPNs will be signing up to this legislation, but Britain has to understand that it is not a necessary market, particularly now it's left the EU, that Britain is not as important as it thinks it is. And if Britain goes all gung-ho into this regulation, as it has done with the Online Safety Act, all of the big companies will be like, fine, what's 1/10th, 1/20th, 1/50th, 100th of our revenue comes from this place. It is way more than 1% of our hassle. Why bother? We can just leave, deal with Europe, deal with Latin and South America, deal with North America, deal with across Asia and all the other places where it's easier and simpler to make business. And then is that then allowing big tech to flourish where there should be regulation? It becomes that incredibly complicated nuance point where there are no right answers to this, but just blocking things can't be one of the right ones.
It's a really fascinating time to be thinking and talking about this because you have governments, and the UK government key amongst them, realizing that they can try and push the boundary a little bit. Actually, it's an ironic kind of reflection of what social media and big tech have been doing over the last 20 years, which is being given an inch and taking a mile on this sort of stuff. Government has recognised, and not just the UK government, the French government banned social media access to under 15s this week. Emmanuel Macron talked about, I think it was social networks and big tech stealing the soul of our kids in very emotive language, passed through the French Assembly there. There is, I think, a recognition that governments kind of want to keep inching further and further and cracking down further and further. And
no, not France. France is just doing that for the Le Pen risk and for the far right risk. And so if you're looking at that policy base, it's not about technology, it's not about business, it's not even really about the economy. It's making sure that the sort of older French voter is particularly aware that they're protecting the children, and this sort of nationalist, soft nationalist stuff around bringing in French companies to run Teams, to run Zoom, those sorts of things. Again, that's not good business, but it is excellent politics. All of the sort of things we talked about earlier with how to convince a voter of to rise up against tech. Macron's making that bet as far as the elections coming up, and that's the difference with France. I think the rest of Europe, your point is sound. I think there is work there, but France is going a little bit more gung ho just so the centre ground can be held.
You're right, and I think we're talking around the same point and are kind of making the same argument, but just in slightly different ways. Which is, I think that's 100% correct. It's that we're not thinking through the impact of trying to play to your base or dealing with the political wrangles within a country and trying to kind of like fence off an argument of an opposition or an incursion party to try and steal a march on you when it comes to an election. The thing is, people are treating this as if it is just tech as we thought of 5-10 years ago, which was this adjunct to our day-to-day lives that didn't really have all that much of an impact. The truth is, these decisions, they're massively consequential to the future of how we live, how we interact, how we do all sorts of things. And so I think that they are pushing the boundaries, maybe not in terms of like with goodwill to try and protect people, but in terms of we see this as expedient because this is where society, the public is on these sorts of things. They worry about this because this is a huge unknown. And actually, we're seeing the consequences of digital overreach. And so they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. The interesting thing to think about is where does the rebound hit? Like for your French Le Pen flirting voter, or for your reform considering protect our kids at all costs and damn the consequences to civil liberties potential voter, where's the point where it starts to really pinch on them that they go, here but no further? We're going to get to that point soon, I think.
Then I think you get back to that paper around the pessimism and the sort of hopelessness of it, because how much change can you really affect? I think people are a lot more willing to accept stuff and accept the erosion of things, and to your point, to a point. But I think there's so much, we have gone so much further beyond to a point than I thought we would on many issues, and actually, particularly in this fragmented world that has been created by algorithms, been by removing community from towns, from cities, and making it hyper fragmented. It makes it more difficult to mobilize en masse. But actually, a lot of people are willing to accept okay. There is that point whereby, as long as it's okay, it doesn't even have to be good. Like if you look at Polanski's most recent party campaign video of him running along and saying it can't make hopeful fine again, you can see how he's trying to attract an electorate that wants to just feel better than okay, or wants to stop running to just to survive. And that plays into, that's when you might see this uprising, again, too strong a word. You will see this motion to actually take direct action against things that are making British citizens' lives worse.
Do you actually think that Zach Polanski is going to cut through to the electorate? Sorry, I know we're a tech podcast, but we do touch on everything else as well.
The tech podcast about everything else. That's our tagline.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he is cutting through. I think too many people will end up tactical voting and sticking with Labour. But then all bets are off if Reform are the favourites to win the election, even though now half of their party. There is more of Liz Truss's cabinet in the Reform Party than there is in the Conservative Party. I haven't triple checked that, but I've someone on the internet said it, so I'm believing it to be true, and I've said it out loud on a podcast, but it's probably true. I think Polanski. I would like to speak to him on here because I think the way that he's leveraging tech is so much better than the Labour Party is, and at least as good as what Farage and Reform are doing, despite the political differences in the target audiences. Polanski is understanding it, or his team are understanding it, and that has the potential, in the way that Mamdani did in New York, to very different markets, but it has the potential to really fundamentally change the way that people think about social media and Web3, and it comes to galvanizing and motivating and mobilizing a vote.
Utter woke nonsense.
We'll be back in a minute.
Really
Welcome back.
Clancy's going to do stuff.
Fuck knows. I mean, if the economy recovers now, the economy still needs to be flat. Or if Rees-Mogg or a couple more move, the risk is that it's just Conservative light, and that really harms it. And then you can market it as same old, same old. It's just they're using the same colour as Conservatives did back in 2015, and a relatively recent election. They've used the same Pantone, and that means that then Green can come through and argue the case.
Sorry, I distracted you anyway from leading on to the next one, but that was interesting.
I think a lot will depend on this seat that Burnham can't stand for.
Yeah.
I think that will be a clear indicator of whether or not people are willing to just fully forego Labour and vote Green. There are people on the ground that say it's between Green and Reform, and unless Burnham stands. I think Labour will still hold it, just Labour or Reform, but I think it's a great test for Greens. Whether Greens can be a meaningful protest vote, which historically it never has been able to pull through on. Welcome back. We have wildly overrun, and whisper it, we didn't really have a third section planned anyway. Shh, don't tell anybody. So it means we are straight on to questions to which there is no answer to, are no answer to. It is impossible to answer, so we'll try and answer it anyway. My question to you, Chris. How many of the 10 million workers that are promised to engage in AI training by 2030 will actually be trained by 2030?
I think about 10, probably, to be completely honest. There will be some excitement about this. The government has made an awful lot of hay around it in the last day or so. You'll have your middle-aged man and woman looking at the BBC News at 6 and learning about it and thinking, I will log on to this. And then, truthfully, they'll probably do what I did earlier today and realize that you have to sign up for it and go, a paywall. I don't like paywalls, even if it's not actually paying for anything. It's having to log in. And then we'll probably not actually do it. I mean, what are you going to learn? I saw that Ed Newton-Rex of Fairly Trained, who is an ardent copyright campaigner, did actually go to the effort of logging in and doing all of that stuff. Then posted a picture of it, and you learn that AI can fill out paintings like the Mona Lisa and give you the backdrop of what it might be, and then ask questions like, is this breaching copyright or not? And the answer seems to be, we don't really know. It's not fully decided yet. So, I don't think that unless you are in a kind of really precarious position and you've heard all of the things about AI replacing your job, I don't imagine many people are going to go through these many micro courses that there are. I mean, are you going to?
Hope I don't need it, but I'll have a look. I think it depends on how much of a fundamental shift in workforce it will be. So one of my first job cricket scorer, terribly paid, did not reach the minimum wage until I was like 13. A second job was in a Learn Direct centre, and that was sort of teaching generally older people how to sort of function, how to use email, how to move a mouse, how the sort of real fundamentals of how a computer worked. Of course, some of the courses were advanced for professionals, but the real core of what they did and why they got charity status was actually, this is the thing that's going to change the world. You have to know this to be able to contact your kids, contact your grandkids, whatever that is. If this AI revolution turns out to be as fundamental of a change to the way that we use technology, then it doesn't need to be 10 million by 2030. It needs to be all of the population, particularly the older population. As we were talking about earlier, the idea that they're sort of saying workers in this is really key, because they're talking about industry rather than talking about people living in communities and watching those people. I still have really clear memory of this married couple that came into the Learn Direct Centre, and they'd never used a computer before. And this was maybe 2000, give or take, around 2000. And that was so baffling that anyone could come in and be like, I've never had to use it. I retired in like 1990. Why would I need to use it now? And then if you think those people that are entering retirement are leaving the workforce now, suddenly AI has completely changed the way that we navigate the internet. It hasn't yet, but it might do. Then these people risk being excommunicated or being entirely left behind of this whole new world that we're about to experience. So that's where government away from industry should be concentrating. With that could be up to 10 million people. That would be great. But actually, the people who will sign up are not the people who need it most. And there is so much community work and hard charity work to get the people who will need it most into this thing. And this go onto a site, give your email address and sign up is not that answer.
Yeah, it's also not suitable as a medium, right? As far as I'm aware, I mean, again, I confess I have not gone into.
We can't talk about it when we haven't even signed up. We have these grandiose.
But what I understand about it is you cannot. It's just a website, right? It's like, this is learning about AI. Surely this should be an AI chatbot. Surely you should be asking questions in a conversation or in a voice interface. 11 Labs exists. All of these things exist. Whisper exists as an open source model. Like why is this the same as my fire security training or my health and safety training or my sexual harassment training like you have when you join a job? Like if you get to the point where, like, sort of, you know, as you mentioned, your pensioners are trying to think about, like, I need to learn about this. Surely the first thing that they'll do is they'll go, oh, well, I've read that ChatGPT can summarize all of this stuff, and they'll just point that at the website and get it to summarize it there. Like, it feels like a very retrograde step to be presenting all this information in a very old-fashioned way. And I get that, you know, my parents don't have smartphones. They were talking this weekend actually about whether or not they want to make that leap, and we're trying to understand what would be involved there. And so some people would be more comfortable with a website. But yeah, if you're trying to show off the ability of this stuff, why not use that, is my point of view. Anyway, I've got a question for you, Alex, to round us out. So let's say that you are on a plane to China. Not because I dislike you, but just because you are on, you know, Keir Starmer's press pack and looking at what is going on with the government and China relations. You have been given one of those burner phones that everybody has to have. Dozens of them have been handed out to Sir Keir and his colleagues that are on this trip. What would you do on that burner phone that you wouldn't actually ever do on your real phone?
Have to be on the plane to China, or is this at any point?
And you can do it at any point if you want. Let's say, well, we learned actually that burner phones have been given to people ahead of a meeting in Egypt, I read in the Times today. And you'll bet that I have put in an FOI request to learn when other burner phones have been given to government officials ahead of trips, because I want to know who the UK government trusts and who they don't.
Are you leaking your own fascinating 1,000-word feature story?
Yeah, it's fine. By the time that this comes out, I will be at least one working day ahead, and you know full well that I can turn around a story in one day.
Yeah, the FOI. It's, we definitely did take 29 days and 23 hours.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Read about it in 2032.
Again, if you haven't, have you watched Zoe Brad yet?
No.
Follow her on all the social platforms. It's her essentially against Manchester Council. Some other councils also included. It's her FOIing over FOIing over FOIing. And it started with this parking lot that was just signposted incorrectly. So she got a ticket unnecessarily. And so it ends up with her parking a toy car in that parking space. It ends up with like this months-long thing involving Andy Burnham. Is compelling content. And now she's sort of moved on to becoming this brilliant journalist adjacent, which is just now journalist fighter for these sort of small things about getting signs removed, messing around with all of these things. Highly recommend it. FOI request. That's how we got into that. Burner phones. First thing I would do would be travel the London Underground with my Bluetooth on. Stop stealing my data. Stop tracking my movements. You say it's secure and it's anonymized. Academics don't agree with you. I think I would retrain my TikTok algorithm, which I'm endlessly fascinated by what happens when you go on TikTok clean without them knowing it's, even though they do, knowing it's you. It's a terrifying place. You understand how much the algorithm works because the content is dreadful. What else do you do with a burner phone? I mean,
You should install Claudebot, is what you should do. Well, it's not called Claudebot anymore. It's called Maltbot. Have you heard about this? I feel like I'm the only person that's heard about this, but it's because I think my X algorithm is completely ruined.
That's everyone's X algorithm.
Yeah, well, that's true as well. So Claudebot is effectively, it's like an assistant, an AI assistant, agentic AI. It's kind of like the next extension of Claude Code, which is run through like a command line or terminal or whatever you want to call it, depending on whether you're on PC or Mac. And it interacts, you install it, you interact with it then through either Telegram or WhatsApp. And it's been obsessed over by a certain corner of the internet because what it does is it just goes out and does stuff proactively. So it will not wait for you to ask it to do stuff. It will basically just be your over-eager assistant, which is fantastic in my mind, but also comes with massive security issues because people are so excited by this that they are just giving over all of their data, all of their information, not even securely setting this stuff up so they run vulnerable to hacking, which is why I would put it on a burner phone, because who cares what happens in that instance.
And that comes back to those AI courses, because we are moving towards the age of agentic AI and preparatory or sort of proactive agentic AI. And then that suddenly means you don't have to book flights, you don't have to book a hotel because everything's done for you at the lowest price it possibly could be. And then that's AI, agentic AI on agentic AI, which one can process to higher or not, whether you can get predictive pricing quicker than you can actually buy the thing. And so that becomes that really fascinating bit of iteration and innovation that people like you and me can go and mess around with. But the idea that somehow you'll only be able to use AI to buy flights in 10 years means that there's a whole generation of people, not wholly, and everything is more nuanced, who just can't book flights anymore and that's where the training is needed. But yeah, burner phone. I have two phones, which I always assumed was just the predilection of drug dealers, and so it's a strange experience to see how different your algorithms between those phones, and it's weird carrying two phones around because then you're one of those people.
Yeah, didn't want to say anything, but everybody is judging you right now.
One is for one type of work, one is for a different type of work, and that makes me sound like a drug dealer. Which, to be clear, I am not. Anyway. Right. Crash is Everything Popular is Wrong production. Follow us on all your favourite podcast platforms. If you enjoy listening or watching, please leave us a review, a thumbs up, and talk to your friends and people on the If you enjoy listening or watching, please leave us a review, a thumbs up, and talk to your friends and people on the internet about us. Do not leave us a 1-star review because you do not like talking about porn. It really does make a huge difference if you're nice about us. The title music is from Nuffer. Check them out on all of the streamers. We're hosted by Acast, assisted by Riverside Studios, and we are published every Thursday morning. Get in touch about anything. We would love to hear from you. All the emails there was one the other week about someone didn't even know what a sandbox was, and we had educated them, and it was fascinating. Warmed my little heart. You can find me at Alex Hudson on all the social platforms worth being on, and you can find Chris on X still at Stokel, and all of his links are there to the other platforms that he's on. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to crashcrash.substack.com or search for Crash Podcast wherever you do your searching, and we will be back next Thursday.